Why don't we start off by talking a little bit about your family? He was Martin Jr., so I'm presuming your father was Martin L. Mundis Sr. And one thing you just told me I didn't realize is you said he was a toll keeper, Columbia Wrightsville Bridge, when that opened in 1930.
Right.
And that your mother and your older sister, you weren't with us yet, in 1930, were at the grand opening of that bridge.
Yes.
So that's kind of interesting. So sounds like a lot of your family life happened between Continental Square and Wrightsville Bridge. A lot of your life.
I lived in several blocks out Market Street.
Okay. And was your father in home construction, or how did you end up moving to these different homes?
That was their hobby, I guess. They wanted to build homes, and they'd build one and live in it for 2-3 years. They'd sell it and move to another place, sometimes an apartment.
Okay.
And they built another house.
And they took you with them.
Oh, yeah.
So was that in East York, or was that out further out towards Stony Brook? Where were these houses?
Between Yorkshire
Mm-hmm.
and Belmont Street. It was the only house on Belmont Street. You know, now that's a busy place.
It is. It is. Wonderful.
It was the only home there.
So you were telling me a little bit about your father. After he worked, I guess, at the toll booth as a toll taker for a while, for a number of years, he also worked for Sears, didn't he?
Yes. Prior to that, he worked for the railroad downtown. He was an agent
Okay.
at the railroad.
Was that the trolley or the railroad?
He was in the office.
Okay.
Yeah, down at Duke and North Street.
Okay. Yeah. And where did he work at Sears? Which locations?
Downtown, West Market Street.
Right downtown.
And
Yeah.
then for a short while, they were his department was combined with the farm store.
Okay.
And they occupied the building in the 500 block of East Market Street, which was a market, I believe.
Okay.
They were in there for a short while. Then they moved to the York County Shopping
York
Center.
County Shopping Center. Okay. Moved out of downtown.
Right.
So his career with Sears kind of followed the different merchants that, they had their large department stores. You probably went there growing up, different times. If you have any memories of any special stores that you went to that you enjoyed going to, or
A lot of Sears, to tell you.
a lot of Sears.
What about Bears?
Bears department
Mhm.
store, that's correct.
Okay.
That
Very
was
good.
my favorite store.
So your brother, let's just talk a bit about your family. You have 3 brothers and 1 other sister, right? So the 3 brothers were the oldest.
Correct.
So why don't you talk about them?
Well, as I was telling you a while ago, they had a newsstand, the 2 older boys, Ken and Morton. I think they also delivered newspapers, but where this was located between the square and Duke Street, it was just a small thing in between 2 buildings. And that was their first venture, I think, in the business world.
They did business together, huh?
Right.
Then your next, after Martin, who's your next brother?
Robert.
Robert, okay.
Mhm.
Were they in business together, or?
No.
Okay.
He worked at, Robert worked at the American Chain Cable Company in the office out on East Princess Street.
So you all graduated from what, York High?
Yes.
Your brother, Martin Jr., he joined the Navy or right out of high school?
Out of high school, I believe he went to the American Chain and took a program to learn the machinist trade.
Okay.
And after he was there several years, he ended up in the Seabees of the Navy.
Wonderful. What do you understand he did with the Seabees?
He was a machinist mate.
Okay.
That branch of service were builders.
Mm-hmm.
They, I don't know what all they did, but they put a song out called "We're the Seabees of the Navy. We can build and we can fight."
Right.
And I don't remember the rest of it.
His service paperwork is right in front of the Navy picture.
Right.
Back. Yeah.
And the Seabees were known, they would build the infrastructure for the, branches of service, whether they be bridges or,
Right.
Ports or whatever they needed. Construction. So when he came home, he got more involved in construction.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. How long was he home before he got married? It's a
Not
beautiful
long,
picture of
uh,
him and Charlotte.
He came home in March of 46 and they got married
in March of 47.
March of 47.
Mm.
That is a beautiful picture.
And
She had a career of her own. She was a seamstress. She went to New York after high school and learned a lot about style. And she came home, she made all her own clothing.
Yeah.
She did.
Now, I'd heard the story that, Martin and Charlotte traveled after he came back from the service, after they got married. They'd go on road trips out west.
And there wasn't much time for that because it wasn't only a year or two till they had the motel.
Right. And I've heard the story that they built the motel to remind them of a place they stayed out west. Is that your understanding?
I believe that's correct.
But we don't have any specific postcards of where they stayed or anything like that. Yeah. Any memories of why the motel was designed the way it was? It was certainly a mid-century streamlined design. Do you think that was?
I think it was something they saw that spurred them on to that, and
Mm-hmm.
they designed it themselves, I believe.
They designed it themselves. So, here they are. He's coming back from the war. They get married, and they wanted to do something new, right? They
always had new things on their mind.
Modern, forward-thinking people at their age.
And so you think they designed the interior of the motel also?
I think so.
Yeah, there's some modern railings in there and some other features the glass block windows and things that
rounded corner.
right. That's all part of that streamlined modern that we see in these early pictures. Natural wood in the lobby. It's interesting because it looks like on some of these early pictures it was known as a tourist hotel, and then later called a motel. Motorist hotel is where motel comes from. So the name kind of evolved the first few years, the first few owners. Did you ever work there at the Modernaire?
Yes, I did.
What did they have you doing?
Well, they of course were up to here they worked 24 hours a day being on call and being available, and they needed to get away for a few hours.
Sure.
So they allowed me to stand at the desk, and I was so proud.
How old were you about?
A teenager.
Mm-hmm. Was that one of your first jobs then?
Yes. And that spurred me on to my life work, I think, because I managed subsidized housing for over 15 years, and then I went on to be the director at the Horn Home.
Very good. So you were always welcoming guests. You were managing the places people stay. Any memories of any early guests when you worked at the Modernaire that
Yes,
still in your memory?
yes. Do you remember Angela Lansbury?
Mm-hmm.
Right, I think it's Lansbury.
Murder, She Wrote, right?
Right, the actress.
She was appearing in a stage play at the York Theater, which was down on East Market Street, where the movie theater was. And she stayed there.
Wonderful.
And
Never knew that.
another lady, I wrote her name here, Roberta Quinlan. Did you ever hear of her?
No. Was she an actress as well?
Yes, she was there. And some more folks that were there were the showgirls from James Street's shows.
Okay.
He came out and rented the rooms for them.
Rooms for his performers. Sure.
Right. That's all I can definitely come
Sure.
up with at this time.
No, I had never heard that Angela Lansbury was there, so she's certainly a world-renowned actress with multiple awards, and
Murder, She Wrote is what
she
she's
was-
famous for.
she's famous for that too. Sure.
Well, it speaks to the high quality of the motel. You know, if you're going to attract some of the world's most, famous people, it wasn't,
I think it was new and appealing.
yeah, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And again, these family-owned motels along the highway, they were put there to greet the travelers along the Lincoln Highway. You had mentioned that Martin and Charlotte went to Philadelphia for their wedding.
Yeah.
They may have taken the train, they may have driven, but people wanted to travel, whether it was to Philadelphia or all the way to New York. And then the performers, if they weren't traveling on the train, they were traveling on the highway, and they needed a place to stay. So,
Well, another appealing part of the Modernaire was people came there, but they didn't just come to rent a room. They came for the fellowship and the friendship that followed when they stayed there.
right,
Because Maury and Charlotte would sit with them outside in the evening under the umbrella and talk for hours. And so they made many friends.
So they were part of the attraction.
Right.
and I've heard that about the various owners of the motel over the years. From the Mundis family to the Straw family, is people would come and they'd come back to spend more time
Yes.
with them.
Yes. They
Yeah.
had many repeat customers.
So it's interesting looking at some of these early signs that they had along the hotel, 49. But here has the first sign that was put up by Martin and Charlotte. Looks pretty homemade. And it's facing the road. And one thing you have to think of, the road wasn't as wide. Cars weren't going as fast. But certainly this building would get travelers' attentions as they were going by. And then this was the next generation of signage, the Modernaire guests. And again, even back then it was AAA rated. And again, it was trying to show something modern. And then later on was the current sign that was lit up with neon that follows many of the same. I look at the font of the letters and it evokes something current. I'd read somewhere about the name Modernaire, that one of your brothers gave it that name. Do you know anything about that story?
I just knew that Robert gets credit for that. He worked closely with my brother. I mean, our whole family helped wherever they could.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there with his wife and daughter, and she was young, I think about 9 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a little girl, but I think her parents left her some pictures
Mm-hmm.
of the motel, and so she was interested too.
Wonderful. So, like many family-owned businesses, everyone in the family was involved.
In one way, shape, or form.
Were your parents involved at all with the business, or not? More.
We're still building.
They were still
They
building.
built a home in the next block at the same time.
Wow.
Oh, wow, is right.
Do you think that's where your brother got his business acumen from, watching your parents flip
sure.
houses?
I'm sure.
And later on, I guess, after your father retired from Sears, he still worked with your brother in real estate, correct?
Well, in between the real estate was Madison Builders Sales.
Okay.
And I helped there too. I was expecting my first job, and I was working at IBM, and they had a regulation that 6 months was the limit
I
to
see.
work. So I wasn't ready to wait. I just was
Kept
offered
working.
a job and went down and helped in the office at the Madison Builder.
And how many children do you have?
5,
5 children.
same as my parents.
So you named one of your children Martin
Correct.
after your father and brother, correct?
Right.
And any specific reason you named him Martin?
I just wanted a Martin, and he was there, and lo and behold, he looks like his brother.
He looks like him too.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
cool.
Mhm.
And what are your other children's names?
The oldest was Scott. Beth came second, then Jay, then Martin, and then James, after my father and my husband.
It's interesting that your first boy you didn't name Martin or James. Huh?
No.
It was
Well,
meant to
tell her
be that
why.
one.
Tell
Yeah.
her why you picked that name.
Well, I don't know why did
You
I?
told me you wanted, it had 5 letters.
Oh, yes, that's right. Had 5 letters. And the next one, Beth, had 4 letters. And the next one, Jay, had 3 letters. And so when Martin came along, I couldn't call him it.
So this looks like some other homes that you're.
That's the home they built after the Madison Builder sales.
Okay.
That's Martin Jr.'s home in Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fancy.
It's behind your college on Springsbury Avenue.
Okay.
Has like a pagoda style front. It's very unique.
Okay. Seems like they liked
Mhm.
unique
Yes.
buildings.
And I was thinking about it last evening. I believe she had lipstick red kitchen cabinets
Oh.
all the way around it
In her home.
in that home.
That home. And that's still there today. I wonder if they still have
Yes, I haven't.
the red cabinets still.
They're probably white.
They're probably coming back in style, though. You know,
Yeah.
people love that.
Hmm. What else can you tell us about your family or the Modernaire Motel that you'd like to share?
Well, let's see. Came up with a couple pages here. After the Madison Builders is when Dad and Marty were in the real estate business.
Hmm.
Dad had, in the meantime, retired from Sears, and the next month he was in the office with Marty. And of course, it only lasted a few years. Marty sold some fairly important places around town, and I've read some letters that people talked about him and said he was the most honest man they ever dealt with. He had a good reputation.
Hmm.
Their office was on Beaver Street near the market,
Okay.
and she did sewing and tailoring in the back, and they had the real estate office in the front.
It seemed like maybe Charlotte or maybe both of them were involved in the York Organ Society. Do you remember them
That was
playing
me. That was me,
You were in the Organ Society?
yes.
Where did you play the organ?
Various churches. I wasn't a world famous organist, but I enjoyed playing, and I played at Yorkshire United Methodist, and then they built a big new church.
Okay.
They had a small church, and of course it was volunteer there. And then when they built the new building, they offered me a paid position, so I went there for a while. But then my family kept interrupting.
Kept moving.
Well, you were on,
Oh, your children
My
came.
children-
she was on like an early podcast. Remember, you just got done telling me the other day that you played the organ for the men who sang,
Oh yes.
and that was on the radio or whatever.
Yes. Yes, when I went to Yorkshire, that was a men's quartet, and I enjoyed that a lot. I didn't sing, I played, but they sang on the radio at 7 o'clock Sunday morning, WNOW.
You played for them.
And when I saw the article in the paper about Buddy King passing away, his parents brought him and his sister into the radio show to sing sometimes, not every Sunday, but so.
So you got to meet a lot of different people, huh?
Oh, I did. And his father was a minister, and he also sold Bibles, and he knew my parents.
You're talking about Buddy King.
Buddy King. His father came to our house, and he loved to play on the piano. So it always seemed to be around lunchtime.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, this article from 1952 talks about the York chapter of the American Guild of Organists
yes,
meeting at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Modernaire Mundis Sr., your parents.
right.
And then the evening concluded with a George Washington party held at the Modernaire Tourist Hotel, Lincoln Highway East.
Questions about managing the hotel, because today when I think about managing a hotel, I think about riffraff and people that are spray painting walls, and I immediately go to the risks. What was the general patronage like? What kind of people came to this hotel? Was it generally nice, or
Definitely.
yeah
A lot of salesmen and some workers that were transferred to local companies would come and stay for a short while till they got situated in the community. And tourists that just loved it there. Some of them came back more than once. There was a couple from Canada that they befriended, and my brother Bob and his wife and their daughter Kay visited them at their home in Canada. They invited them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you became friends with people.
Right.
So this wasn't a place that people just breezed through.
Yeah.
It was a place they continued to visit over and over again, a touchstone in their lives almost.
That's right, and they were treated so well. I think that's the reason why.
So people that were staying at the Modernaire, where would they go nearby to eat, typically? Any memories of that?
I'm not sure if the paddock was there at that time,
About that time, yes.
but not the restaurants that are there now.
Right.
I don't know even if Avalon's was open then. That would have been back to Mount Zion Road.
Yeah, it's early. I'm thinking of later on, Stony Brook was Howard Johnson's at one point.
That's correct. Yes.
And about the time the motel opened up was the same time that the Stony Brook Drive-In opened too, right? So people could go there for some entertainment. Along there about that same time, that was about the same time the Haynes Shoe House was built, Modernaire, the drive-in. Playland was nearby.
I have something to show you from.
Do you have something from Playland?
I worked there.
You worked there too?
What was Playland? I don't know if I'm not familiar with
A
this.
skating rink and a swimming pool. And that too was a modern style. It was built on as an oval.
Right. Yes, I have this picture. It's great.
I bought that at Central Market.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. That's huge.
It was. And
And was that golf? Was that mini golf?
mini golf.
Yes. So I was a locker girl.
Okay.
And worked at the refreshment stand in the rear. And then at nighttime I was on the miniature golf course.
Ah.
And there was an airport right next to it.
Right. There used to be an
Yeah.
airport out that way.
And I worked for Mr. Sternberg at Playland. And one day he asked me if I'd like to go for a ride in his plane, and I said sure. So he took me up, and that was my first experience there.
That's special. You know, people ask you a lot if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be? And you're really making me wish that I could have a time machine and just drive down Route 30, you know, or Lincoln Highway, and to see what life was like. Because I really didn't have any idea. You're
That
making
was
it
my
sound,
whole life.
yeah, you're making it
My
sound
whole
beautiful
area.
and fun, and like work was a different time.
Mhm. It was a different time.
Well, that's why we have awesome people like Tom over here trying to save a piece of it so we don't forget
He
it.
knows more about it than I do.
Well, Tom does his research.
I believe that.
But you know, it's just wonderful, you know, meeting you before as part of, you give these history presentations everywhere, and you just find people in the audience that, you know, we can read about it, but they lived it.
Right.
And it's very wonderful that you could take time to share some of your memories with us. Appreciate
It's
it.
wonderful to reminisce about all of this.
So when did the Modernaire get sold then?
In,
This, I have a newspaper article in there from the sale.
The first time,
53.
Okay.
yeah, they didn't hold on to it that long after they built it.
No, 4
About
years.
4 years. Yeah.
When you think about it, he was 16 when he graduated, and when he died, it was only 32 years later, so he crammed all that living into
Right.
32 years.
Accomplished a lot.
Who knows what more he could have done had he not gotten sick.
For someone, you know, take us back in time, if we were to enter the hotel, what would we see? What are the colors on the walls? I've seen some pictures, but help me imagine what it was like.
I'd say they were rather simplistic. They had the necessities. They had these chairs that they weren't real leather, I don't believe.
I don't know, with Uncle Marty, it might have been one.
Might have been. But then they had metal that simulated wood for the chest. And it had several drawers, big drawers, and a couple chairs, and a nice comfortable bed.
Was Charlotte in charge of decorating?
It sounded
I'm
like
sure
it.
her input was tremendous.
I think about when you start talking about that time period is like the Dick Van Dyke Show, you know, just the very, you know, very streamlined furniture, or, you know, it's
Minimalistic. is what
it's
they
very
call it now.
minimal, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, you went in there in more recent years. You know, they still had the natural stone fireplace was a feature in the lobby that I would think guests would gather around as they were there, and I believe the geometric railing is still in there, so it's you know, even though it's not a huge place, you go inside, it has, you know, an impact on as you walk in there in terms of it's a special place.
Mm-hmm.